So last class we had some problems with the sound. I have tested this several times, so I hope that it goes better than the last time. The problem with this is that if I talk a little bit louder than a normal voice, it makes a strange sound that I don't like. So I'm going to try my hardest not to hit it like that. Here's what I'd like to do today. I want to go over the list with all the words from last class. I believe that there was a lot of misunderstandings last class also with the assignments. Um, some of you just looked at the number of the page and the assignments, and you didn't read on Canvas what I wrote, what you were supposed to do. Because what I said, and I think it's really important, let this be a lesson for you to remember that whenever you're giving an assignment, I'm definitely not making a big deal out of it. I'm not marking anybody down for it or anything like that. But for future reference, you have to read the instructions. You have to pay close attention to instructions. They, I know that it said page 152. It said that, and it said you have to do all the exercises except for the last one. Yes, it said that. But it also said ignore the instructions on the page and follow what is written here. And what I had written was instead of doing what the exercise is asking you to do, what I want you to do is to look at the words and look up the definition of the words. That's what you were supposed to do. It wasn't about, oh, separate this column and that column, what's negative, what's positive, whatever the exercise was asking you to do. On Canvas, I specifically and explicitly wrote, ignore what it says and just make a list with the words and the definition. I do understand that there was a misunderstanding that people didn't even realize they had to look on Canvas. Some of you may only have read what I wrote in a group chat. I may have also said in a group chat that I wanted you to look on Canvas, but that ship has sailed. We're now days after everybody handed in something, at least most of you handed something in, and I saw the amount of work that you put in, all of you, the way that you could with what you had, and everyone is getting credit for what they did. But for future reference, you have you really have to follow instructions. You really do. You can easily find yourselves in a situation where you take an exam and there are specific instructions for you. And if you misunderstand those instructions and you just write something completely different, even if the grammar is on point, even if the assignment that you wrote looks amazing, there's no grammar mistakes, there's not one single spelling mistake, everything is on point, but it wasn't what was asked because you misunderstood the instructions, you'll get 0 points for it. So it is very important. Read what is being asked. And a lot of you didn't understand the instructions. Some of you may not have read them, but what is important from this experience is that next time you'll try to do better. So everyone got credit for what they handed in this time. But you have to remember that if you get assessed by an outside teacher, a teacher who doesn't know you, they will not take anything into consideration. I think I told you the story about a student of mine. Doesn't matter in which part of the world this happened, it matters that it happened. This was an amazing student who had good grades, who always did their work, who could speak English well enough to get a 5 or a 6. But the one day when they had an outside teacher grade the work, the student got a 2, which really disappointed me to see that. But it wasn't her fault entirely. She may not have presented herself in the same way that she presented herself in class, but also an outside teacher is not going to know you, and you're probably going to get a lower grade from an outside teacher, what you call here censor. So you have to really read instructions, pay attention. Let's see if it gets better. Let's look at these words. I'm trying to make them bigger on the screen so I can actually read them myself. I'm having trouble reading them. This is a very, very small copy. I'm surprised at how small it is. I know that one of the words is destructive. The word destructive is, of course, a negative type of word. Give me examples in the chat. Sentences with the word destructive. You can say a person is destructive, that they do a lot of negative things to destroy situations or other people. That's a negative, very negative connotation of the word. So I really hope, let me see. Am I picking up audio here? I hope I am. The next word is obesity. So if you say a person is obese, because obese and obesity, those are two words that are in the same family. If you say a person is obese, what does that mean? You can say the person is overweight, that the person is maybe he or she weighs more than what her or his height would require for them to be healthy. So you say obese. Obese, it is a synonym for the word fat, but nowadays when you say obese is more than fat. Obese is when a person is actually in danger, when they have a health problem, because you have different levels where you can say someone is a plus size model. There are beautiful women who are plus size models. They are not super skinny like a stick. They have curves. They have some of them are bigger than whatever average weight is considered, average, whatever it is. So there is a lot of different levels to where you can say overweight, plus size, or you can say someone's chubby, or it, but there's certain words that are more negative than others. So I suppose nowadays when you say plus size, so say that woman is a plus size model, that's probably more politically correct and less offensive than saying fat or obese. So you have to be really careful with that. Obesity is a disease, is when somebody is at a level where they're very unhealthy. So you can say that person suffers from obesity. There are a few other words in that same column, in column A. The next word, famine. Have you ever heard that word before? In one of the texts that we read, we talked about how in certain cases, in certain areas of the world, we talked about first world countries and developing nations. In some developing nations, famine is a problem where people are starving. There's not a lot of food. So you can say shortage of food is famine. I think the pronunciation here that I found on the pronouncing dictionary, famine, is probably a standard pronunciation, not really like British or American, but just standard English for international communication. Next word, pollution. Let's take a look at the chat and see the first three people to write sentences with that word. Factories create a lot of pollution. Pollution is bad for the environment. Those are things that you can say. Disease. What's a disease? Can you give me synonyms for that word? Words that mean the same? Illness is one. Sickness is another. So disease, illness, sickness. You can say Janet suffers from a disease. Or you can say Rick has a disease. Rick has an illness. He has a mental illness. He has some problems with his emotions. Or you can talk about someone having a contagious disease. There are many ways to use the word, and in your field of expertise, you will use this word. And it's important to know other words: disease, illness, sickness. And a disease is something you have. An illness is something you suffer from. You suffer from a disease, you suffer from an illness, you have an illness, you have a sickness, or you are sick, you are diseased, or you are ill. Remember Z. A lot of Norwegians that speak Norwegian as their first language, they tend not to pronounce their Z's and their V's. So you have to be really careful, because if you don't pronounce this correctly, the word disease, which means sickness, if you don't pronounce your Z, Your Z sound, you're going to say disease. To disease is a verb, to die. And you can say someone's father is deceased. Not diseased, but deceased. So it really is, how do I put it? It really is tricky and easy to make that mistake. But you have to, all of you who have trouble doing z, v, your V's, especially your V's, you have to make them vibrant. You say vending machine, velour, devil. It's like a v. It's very, very vibrant. If you touch your throat while you say it, you can feel the vibration. Verb, video, vote. That's something that I'm going to be paying attention to when you do a presentation, when you do an interview with me, when you do an oral test. I'm going to be watching for it because I've been talking about it very often. Moving along, the next word is undernourished. So if a person is too skinny to the point that they're a skeleton and they can't stand up on their own and they're starting to feel ill and sick, they are undernourished. An undernourished person is a person who doesn't eat very well, is a person that doesn't get enough vitamins, doesn't get enough protein, is a person that is diseased. Not deceased, diseased. They have an illness. Limited. Please type in chat. Type the meaning of the word limited. You can either type a definition in English or you can type it in Norwegian for me to see that you know. The next word, after you write in what limited means, I want you to tell me what the next word means. I keep typing with the wrong keyboard. I had to plug this into another computer, so that causes a little bit of confusion. Let's hear a standard pronunciation for it. I usually bring in like a more Americanized pronunciation of the word, but let's hear
drought, drought,
even though there's a G and an H and a T in the end, you don't hear all of those letters. It's drought. And what does that word mean? If you talk about a period of time when there hasn't been any rain, everything is completely dry, that's a drought. Let me show you a definition with a picture. I'm going to show it to you right now. That right there is a drought. A period of dryness, especially when prolonged specifically, so a long period with no water. That's a drought. Let me go back to this. There we go. Because this is what I asked you to do. I know that the exercise has a title, but I asked you to actually just write in the words and make a list of the words with their definitions or a translation in Norwegian. I would have accepted either. Next word, renewable. Renewable. So we have the word new in the middle there. Something new. New is the opposite of old, isn't it? And something you renew. Let me give you an example. If you check out a book at the library and you have to hand it in today, the 11th of February, you're not finished reading it, so you can go to the library's website and you can renew, renew that loan and you can keep the book for a longer period of time. To renew. What does that mean? Å fornye is indeed a very, very good way of, how do you put it, translating it. It's a very good way of translating it. Å fornye, to renew. Let's move on with this. Renewable is something that you can renew. It's a very good way of putting it. Next word, resources. What are resources? Where are they? Writing Norwegian. What you think that word means. And everybody hit jackpot on that one. You are right. It is said. I may be mispronouncing it slightly, but you know what I'm trying to say. You know what I'm trying to say. I want you to keep typing either the definition or just so I'm going over all of these words with you because I feel like not everybody got what they were supposed to do last class, so I just want to make sure that everybody has all their information. The next word is, we're almost done. Well, we're halfway done. That's not almost, but halfway done. Sustainable. Sustainable. What does that mean? To sustain, to when you have a sustainable income, for example, it means that you can live on that income. When you have a sustainable farm, it means everything that you produce on your farm, you can consume, you can eat cheese and drink milk that you get the milk from the cows and you plant your own garden and you have vegetables in the garden and you eat the produce. So it's a very sustainable type of life where you don't have to go buy anything because you have everything that you need. Who has a good who has a good word for it in Norwegian? think one of the words, I was going to say it, but I just checked to see if I was right. Bärkraftig, that's sustainable. Recyclable, recyclable, that's something that you can reuse. We've talked about this. Plastic can be recyclable. Paper, some types of paper. The next word is invention. Please type either the definition or the translation to the word in our region. Invention. Who invented the telephone? Graham Bell invented the telephone. I hope I'm right about that. I almost want to check, but I feel I'm pretty sure that he invented the telephone. Alexander Graham Bell. What did Alexander Graham Bell invented? The telephone. Oh, he actually invented some other things as well. The mine detector, the twisted pair. He invented a whole lot of things. But the telephone is probably the most notable of all of them. An invention is something you create. Energy saving. You probably have on your phone battery saving mode, energy saving, when you don't waste the energy or the electricity or the battery. You put a hyphen, which is bindestreck, hyphen, and then you put the word saving next to it to explain whatever it is that you're saving. I'd like to quickly go over the rest of the words so that this doesn't become a very long, 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 long thing. The word repair, please type. What does repair mean, either in Norwegian or a definition in English? Repair, fix. Benefit. A benefit is an advantage. En fordel, a benefit, an advantage. Behavior. Please type. I'm sure people are writing atferd, and also oppførsel. Those are good words in our region for behavior. A scientist. A scientist is somebody that is very good at science. They are a scholar, an academic person who knows a lot of science. They can invent things, they can develop projects, scientific projects. Advice, and while I have you on this, advice is a non-count noun. So you say, let me give you a piece of advice, or let me give you some advice. You don't count them, one, two, three. I'd like you to write now, real quick, a synonym for average. Either a synonym or a definition in English or what it is in our region. Average, genomsnittlig, very good. Development. When you develop something, when you make something better, or when you create something, you're making a development. Action. What does action mean? You can have, and I'm going to find a good word for you. I'm pretty sure that this is a cognate in our region. I could be wrong. The definition in the dictionary has the word handling for it. And handling. An action is something that you do. You perform an action, you do something. That's an action. Verbs are expressions of actions. That's what verbs are. We're almost done here. We only have two words left. Source. Please type real quick in our region what that is. Source. Kilde is correct. Population. What's the population in Norway? How big is the population in Norway? How many people live in Norway now? Befolkning is one way to describe it. Okay, everyone, the last thing we're going to do today is a Quizlet Live. Just a couple of rounds, and after that, you can do your assignment. And your assignment will be you can work on a couple of things. Those of you who didn't do the whole thing last class with all these words that we talked about today, you can take a moment to finish it today. Those of you who have completed your assignment, you can continue to work on your essay about ambitions and plans for the future. So I'm going to give you this time to work on that. So you have two options. Finish the work that you may not have finished from Monday, which means the list of words, these words that we just talked about. Write them down and write a definition for them if you haven't done it yet. If you have already done it, work on your essay about ambitions and dreams for the future. If you're done with all of that, congratulations, you just have some time to work on a different subject. Some of my students have told me that sometimes they use the time left in our English classes or Spanish classes and they do assignments for other classes because they are so overwhelmed with work that they have to do. So if you're finished, go ahead and work on something else. As soon as you see the code, please get started. I know that not everyone likes this, but some will, some won't. So what? Some, as soon as you see the code, go straight in. Don't worry about what's going on the screen because it's most likely, not most likely, for sure, it's the sample game that I play just to show what we're doing. If someone were to come in and observe the class, they would understand what we were doing. Go to Quizlet Live. No, not Kahoot, Quizlet Live. And type in the code. Also, I don't even have to ask you girls to do that. Write a name that I can recognize, and please no inappropriate names. I don't have to say this to you though. Nobody has ever in the history that I have with this class, nobody has ever used an inappropriate name on those games. So that's excellent. The game might have already started. I don't know what's going on in real time, but this is a sample game that I'm putting in to fill the chat with, to fill the video with what we're doing so whoever watches the class can have an idea of what we do here. And we're starting. I mean, I'm starting. You may have already started. We're going to do just a few rounds. You don't really have to worry about handing in anything today unless you haven't handed in anything on Monday. Use this time to either finish the work from Monday. If you have done everything, work on your essay. Your essay is about ambitions and dreams for the future. Feel free to submit drafts of your essay to me so that I can correct it, give you notes, so that on the day that you actually have to deliver, on the day that you have to write it officially, then you'll have a better chance of getting a very high grade. Have a great rest of the day.